Good day, everybody. This is the Ecclesiarch here, back with some more FORGECAST. And I'm sure that some of you were very excited for this episode because there are a lot of things to talk about. And I'm here with none other than Bjthebrave as always. BJ?
What's up, guys? How's everyone doing? Glad to be back with you, Ecclesiarch. We got a lot of news. The season's ended. We've obviously the Tyrannies dropped just a few, 4 or 5 days ago, and yeah, looking forward to getting into it with you, buddy.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, actually. And, I don't even know where to start. Do you have a suggestion?
Well, yeah, let's the season has literally just ended yesterday as we record this, so maybe let's start with kind of like just recapping our seasons in January. I mean, I'm really keen to hear kind of like what how you got on and kind of like what the season was like for you, because I always find that it's always a little bit different for different people and depending on kind of like their decks and also just what's going on with your personal life and how much you play and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so Tom, let's dive in. How, in general, talk us through your January season, really, if you can remember back to the the beginning and how it ended.
Yes, I was very excited actually for the January season, and I have to admit this was the first time that I was excited in WARPFORGE after the release. I mean, at the release I was very excited, but the first two seasons, like the preseason and the first season, for me were not exciting at all. I mean, even the preseason with the Ultramarine meta was more fun than the Gas meta for me, because I guess the Ultramarines at least like I was thinking about like coming up with some ways to deal with them, but with the gas meta I just gave up. You probably remember I was like, okay, I'll just wait for the patch, okay? But when the new season dropped, that probably everybody remembers that we were pretty enthusiastic about that. We were very, we were waiting for that like crazy, because saying that, wow, this might be a very good patch. And it was a very good patch. And honestly speaking, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun because I was able to play so many different warlords. Even though I stuck, in the end, I stuck with only a couple, I was able to play every faction in this meta, and it was very, very fun. I played a lot of Chaos with 2 different warlords, mostly sticking to Abaddon. I played a lot of Galen, tried some Zephyrblade. I played Grook a lot once again. Then there was Emotech that I tried for a couple of games as well. I tried the Swarmlord, Neurotrope. Everything was like very fun. And of course, Uriel and Varo Tigurius. So I tried everything on the ladder. And honestly speaking, like in the end, I stuck with, I believe, 4 warlords that I tried to climb with. One being Galen, one being Uriel, one being Abaddon, and one being Grook. Obviously, because I was trying to actually get a spot in the top 50 or maybe even top 10. Unfortunately, the top 10 kind of slipped out of my hands in the end. But
quite exciting. Quite exciting last few days, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was a big grind. It was crazy, and I loved how while playing in the top 50 for most of the season, the top 10 players that were usually there, they were playing such different stuff, like there were the ones that mained Uriel, like Papa, there was Vasya that was playing Gaskell, there was Alski with Grok, there was Shrigma with Galen, then there was Balduko with the Necrons, and so many other things. Like, I may have forgotten a couple of people, but
there was even a guy with Zephyrblade, right?
Yeah. I think it was
Chinese guy. Yeah.
There was that one. There was also Faceless, I believe, with Zephyrblade, and it was pretty scary, honestly. And they were running some very interesting builds, and honestly speaking, I had a lot of fun. I even saw a guy who has been trying to make Boss Zackstruck work and so on. And speaking of which, there's gonna be a Boss Zackstruck video coming, I believe today or tomorrow, because I'm gonna be honoring our wager, because in the end, Galen did get a higher win rate on the legendary rank than Abaddon, so I have to do a Zackstruck now.
We should tell people, it sort of sits nicely in the meta report, that, but we've had this like ongoing joke, haven't we? So I did a meta report, admittedly very, sorry, this is a little bit of a detour, we'll come back to your January, but I did a meta report. Admittedly, it was quite early in the season, and so it wasn't quite accurate, although I ended up getting some things very accurate, but we'll come back to that. But one of the things that I did is I put Ecclesiarch Abaddon in tier 4, and I was actually thinking of your old deck at that point, because you'd not come up with the sort of new version with the buffed unit. I've forgotten the 6-drop. what's it called? The 6-drop.
Venom Crawler.
The Venom Crawler, yeah. So I'd put in tier 4, and then we'd had this ongoing thing throughout the season that you were saying, and Papa was saying, oh, Abaddon's like tier 1, I think, and I was saying no, but I was a bit harsh at tier 4, and I actually come in. I've actually redone my meta, and I actually said to you, I think Abaddon's tier 2. I think he's good, much better than I'd originally had him, but I didn't believe he was quite in the upper echelons. And I think we've seen that in the meta report. So we had a little vote, didn't we? We had a little bet, which was who will have the highest win rate between Abaddon and Galen. And did we say top 50 or overall?
We said top 50 because in the overall, it didn't make sense because overall Abaddon has a much higher one. But that's because when you play Abaddon in the lower ranks, it's very easy to beat newer players with Abaddon, and it's very easy to win as new players with Abaddon because even though I do believe that Abaddon requires knowledge of the Warlord to make it work in higher ranks, in lower ranks it's also easy to, you could say like it's something that is very easy to pick up but hard to maybe master. You could call it like that, because I think that's good. When you're playing with newer players, mostly you're just going to drop a unit, they're not going to remove the unit and underestimating it, and then you just turn it into something crazy with the buffs and you just win. So he really did have a very high win rate in the lower brackets. In the higher ones it was still above 50%, and I would say it's pretty good because considering the high usage rate that it had of 16%, I think that was the not 16 even high. I think he was the highest used Warlord overall, and considering that, pulling off above 50 is pretty cool. So however, like I do agree, actually, BJ, if we go there, like between like S and A and so on, I would say Abaddon would more probably drop under the A tier. A reason for that being like I've thought about like what makes an S tier, right? And S tier, I would honestly put the Orcs, Uriel, and Galen, and I'll tell you why I would say they're mostly the S tier ones, because
you're jumping into the meta report, but this is good.
Basically, I would put them there because I've been thinking about one thing. Probably what makes the strongest pick in general is the one that can beat you without having a board down. Like Uriel can keep bursting you, even if he doesn't need to have a unit on the board that sticks in order for him to win. Same thing is with like the Eldar. They whittle you down and then just finish you off, right? With the Orcs, they don't really have to have anything on the board, really. All three of their win conditions work from hand. Like, there's the Propagilla finisher with potential of like 15, 16 damage. Then there's the Green Horde into filling the board and doing Carnage, which is 18 damage. Then there's the Rock Invasion. So they don't really have to have anything on the board. They can just play with flanks, like flanking, and they're just pressing the win condition. It's very similar for the Eldar, but the Eldar are much harder to play because you have to manage those Spirit Stones and slowly you have to whittle down the enemy. And once they are in range, you can just blow them up. And with Ultramarines, you just have to play pretty aggressive and you don't really care about making your unit stick. Like, for example, when you drop a Sergeant, right? It already did its 2 damage and it's already a 3/3 on the board, so it did its job already, so you don't really care. Whereas with Chaos, your win condition is to have something on the board for 1 turn. If it sticks, and chances are pretty good that it will, especially with the Venom Crawler, that's why the win rate has been rising, then you can win. But there's the difference between the A and S tier. The S tier does not require to have a functioning board to win, whereas the A tier is already somebody who needs a board, but is good at building the board. Let's say it like that. Kind of the reason why maybe Swarmlord could also go into like A and not S, because he does need 1 unit on the board still. It's still 1 unit, but he needs that 1 unit to do the combo with Ravenous, right? So there's that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on the meta report, and we've got some data, but I've got I'll refrain from going too deep into it now. We'll come on.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
So it sounds like you managed to play a lot similar to me in that you played a lot of the Warlords, and you tested a lot of stuff last season, but then there was a point, wasn't there, where you kind of switched gears and started to climb rapidly. Was that with Abaddon initially?
So basically, this is how I did it. So most of my viewers might remember it because most of the climbing I did on stream. I was out of top 50 and I started with Abaddon. I climbed to around 30 with Abaddon, but it was my old Abaddon deck. After that, I switched to Uriel, and with Uriel, I believe I went to top 15. Then I switched again and I went to Gruk, and with Gruk, I went to top 10 instantly. Then I continued like switching around with Warlords. In the top 10, I was actually just playing 4 different Warlords because, as I said, like one of my problems is that I cannot stick to one Warlord. I get bored very quickly. So this season actually made it worthwhile for me to fight for the top 50 and 10 because it allowed me to play different stuff, which was a very big luxury considering we've never really had that luxury before. In
I agree. It's pretty cool because the last 2 seasons it was like you looked at the top 10, it was just all Gruk, all Gazgul, and then the season before that I think it was even worse. Believe it or not, it was. I remember looking at the top 20 and thinking it's literally all Manius Calgar. And if they weren't playing Calgar, they were playing Tagirius, which was basically the Calgar deck, but with Tagirius, and it was really demoralizing. But you're right, this season there was a lot of variety. So did you actually? Is it reasonable to ask you, like, just thinking about your own play style and your own preference, not necessarily like objectively which is the best, but just from your personal perspective, like, did you land on this is the deck I feel most powerful playing, like this is the deck I feel like I've got the best chance of winning with? Did you get to that point, or was it more like there was still 2 or 3 decks kind of on it?
I did like it might be me, but I think Gruk was the deck which I felt like very strong because I felt like if there was a Tyranid opponent, the game was won in most cases. I was not afraid of Necrons. I was not afraid of Ultramarines, not afraid of Chaos. The only opponent that kind of made me feel a little bit uncomfortable when I would see would be the Eldar. Mostly because I do think that the Orcs... and it's the opposite as well. Orcs and Eldar tend to struggle really much against each other. Like with the Orcs, because they can clear your Green Horde combo like crazy. And I'm not talking about Grook aggro. I'm talking about Grook control, actually. And I actually forgot to mention, the first Grook that I climbed with into top 10 was Grook aggro. But then I switched to control because there were a lot of Galens and Uriels, and they had a good way of shutting down my aggro, because with the aggro Grook, the difference here is that with the aggro Grook, you're trying to drop your Green Horde early because we're very consistent, because you often get the units that you need with your Red Wa. So at like Energy Turn 4, you mostly have a full board, but Eldar can clear it and Uriel can also potentially clear it, right? But with the control Grook, I usually use my Green Horde not as to swarm the board, but as to do a finisher. Like I do the Green Horde, suddenly fill up the board, and do the Carnage, which is usually enough to clear the whole enemy board and deal like half his HP damage or something. So
I see. Because you you had a different version to me, but you ran the Unbridled Cat to Unbridled Carnage, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I felt the strongest with the Grook because once again, too many flanks, too much removal. There's like 3 win conditions, and against the Eldar, like even though it's a thing, if you drop Archel Grook, and if they don't have either their Hemlock or the Wailing Doom, which usually they want to do in your face, they kind of lose because Eldar have trouble punching through units like that. So I would say I felt the strongest with Grok. After that was definitely Abaddon, because I think through a lot of Abaddon games I finally managed to get a hang of him for real, and I think he was pretty good.
Yeah,
and
you're very good at piloting Abaddon.
Took a long time, but I think I got there. And to all my viewers and my fans, I love you and hate you equally for spamming my Emotech deck until this day, because every single game I lose against that deck, I want to break something. I want to smash my keyboard, because first of all, it's infuriating losing against Emotech, because it's so annoying. Oh my god!
I had it this morning. I lost to it this morning.
It's so annoying. Oh my god!
But I'm so glad though, dude. I'm glad that it's there, right? Because right now, and again, without coming too into the meta and stuff, it's so aggro tempo based that it isn't. at least Emotech is one of the few decks right now that's powerful but offers a slightly different play style. So I'm very, very grateful. Even though I agree with you, it is frustrating to lose against, but
Oh my
I'm
god.
glad it exists. Honestly,
I can imagine, like, because when I made that Emotech deck, a couple of things were different, you know? First of all, the Scythe Assault dealt more damage, the Curse of the Pharaon was more damage, the Lich Guard was stronger, like, Tomb World was stronger, so there were things, and Technomancer was stronger, and Psychomancer was stronger. So when I made that deck, I can imagine like how much frustration people must have felt when playing against that.
Oh yeah, it was much stronger, wasn't it, before?
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, like I created a monster or something. Like,
yeah,
Jesus Christ, I swear to God. But yeah, I'm glad that people are still using it, and I'm actually working on remaking that deck, like updating it to current standards. I think there's a few things that need to change there, because I played a few games with it yesterday. I think it was pretty good overall, but it feels as if something needs to change there. So I'm currently thinking of what I can do.
That'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be cool.
You know what I would love? You know what I would love? If the Implacable Conqueror also reduced the cost of unit in your hand and not only your deck. That would be pretty good. It's the 5-cost Necron card.
Yeah, just give it a bit more tempo. Yeah. Although it might be too... Would it then just be too good?
Yeah, considering you can use that on Energy Turn 3, probably it could be too good.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it, with the Divination. So... How did the season end for you then? So you said you did settle on Gruk kind of being your slight preference deck. Like last few days, I know obviously there's a few people in the hunt for the top 10, and just for listeners who aren't aware, the way the card backs work in terms of the rewards, I believe that whoever comes number 1 gets like a golden version with like the triple what are they called, the what they call now, the little marine honors things called the
Aquila.
Oh, I've forgotten the name of them. There's a specific name of them, but I forgot. But anyway, we'll just say gold. They get the gold card, and then I think ranks 2 to 10 gets the silver, and then 11 to 50 gets the bronze version. So we were kind of like, there's a few people in the race for like top 10, and there's a bit of an incentive there to push for top 10, which, by the way, I think the game needs more incentives like that, like, you know, for people to have something to aim for. I hate the fact that the
BJ, I think you got stuck. Your internet.
Name does that.
Okay, can you say it again?
Yeah,
you're talking about the incentive, right? So
yeah, I just think the game needs more incentive. It was quite nice having something to aim for, like the top 10, and I think the game needs that at other levels more generally. Like, I hate the fact that the season's reset and we start at legendary. We start at 2,500. What's that all about? Like, the first milestone you and I should be aiming for now is to become legendary again. Like every other card game on there, that is like, I've played card games, honestly. When I played like Runeterra and Hearthstone, that was my goal for the season, really. It was just to hit legendary, and I was kind of done then. Whereas in this game, it's like you start at legendary. I know there aren't as many players, but I just think that's a huge. So sorry, back to you. So you had the top 10 you were aiming for, and so how did the last few days go? Did you play a lot? Did you grind hard for it?
I'll tell you in a second. I just got kind of stuck in the thing. You mean like because I think I'm kind of confused. You meant like the Space Marine numbers that they have on the shoulder pads, like the numerations? You meant there were like some bonus things.
No, the little, there's a name for them, because I used to the thing that's like the red circle with the honors strip. There's a purity seals. That's what it's called. Oh
yeah, purity seal.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to remember.
Wait, there's a purity seal on it? That's why
you get triple. Remember. The gold card has like triple purity seals across.
I never noticed that, actually.
Yeah, so the gold has triple, and then the silver one has double, and then the bronze just has singular purity seals. So that's the other difference.
I never noticed that. Yeah, so I was trying to get to top 10 in the last day. Like when I like went to sleep, I was basically in the 10, but then I woke up to like 13. So I decided to. But then I had a little job to do, so I had like 3 more hours to climb. And when I played, unfortunately, I lost 3 games in a row instantly. That was minus 60 points. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna climb anymore. So I settled for 15, which still gave me the bronze card back, some really nice rewards. I got the flying Hive Tyrant, which I was missing, even though I don't think it's a good card.
Oh,
I was
cool.
missing it, and I still wanted to have it because one day it might become a very strong
Yeah.
card. You never
Always
know.
nice to get one you haven't got, right?
Yeah, because you never know. Like, for example, in Horus Heresy Legions, there was one card for the Dark Angels called the Forbidden Secret, and it was, ever since it came out, it was the most meme card in the world because nobody used it. Yesterday they buffed it, and I made a video on a deck around it because it's very good now. So you never know. You never know when they might make a card very good. So you might just want to have it. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. And people don't know as well, like, unless you've been like at the top of ladder, you don't understand how frustrating it is. Some people have asked me on stream, it's like you can literally have a gaming session for 4 hours. You could have a 70% win rate and not have moved anywhere, because it's like you win a game, you get 6 points, you win a game, you get 7 points, you win a game, you get 6. Oh, you just lost a game and lost 24 points. So basically you've undone, you basically have to have like an 80% win rate to climb, and even that's slow. So basically losing is kind of like end of your gaming session. It's not a good way to incentivize you playing, and it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very frustrating, and I kind of also challenged myself, and I think that was not very smart in terms of being productive, but I challenged myself to do it without bots, and it was very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I managed to remain in 15 without bots, but it was very difficult, because currently, I think BJ, like, currently they did fix the main issues with the ladder, which was at the start, if you remember, people taking 40 points as soon as you went to 3K something. I think right now it's the problem with it is that there's not enough players right now to make sure that you are facing someone around the equal things, because whenever I was facing like people not even top 10, like maybe top 40 for example, they were maybe giving me 11 points and taking maybe like 15, which is absolutely fine. Because 11 and 15, you're losing more than you're winning, which is okay, because it kind of shows you that you need to have a positive win rate. But let's say you win 2 games and you get 22 points in total. If it takes away 15, you're still in net positive, right? So that would be fine. I think it's just about like us being it's being necessary to get some more players. There have been more players, I think, recently, because I'm seeing more activity. I'm seeing more different places.
Definitely.
And I'm hoping that the community grows soon. I'm sure that it's gonna grow. Like, don't forget, this is still a new game, and with the addition of some new stuff, it's gonna grow. But I'm hoping it happens soon, because I want to make some content, man. So
yeah, I know you're in an awkward position because you're kind of known more as a HHL, and I know your videos do much better whenever you release one for that than they do in WARPFORGE. And but I think you're right. I think the community has grown a little bit this season, and they desperately need to get more content out. But I also wonder, just a small challenge to something you said earlier, which is that you said about how the challenge is we don't have enough players yet. I think that's true, and I think that's all good. But I think you have to design your ladder system, and you have to design your game around the big game and base you've got. There's no point saying, "Oh well, when we get half-stone numbers, our system will work." It's like, well, no, this is what the numbers you've got. Make your system a fun experience for the people who are playing your game. I mean, I think it's a tradition at this point. I think every single podcast I've mentioned the Pro League in Gwent and the ranking system. So I'll say it again. For me personally, like, even just having that, the I would say that would triple my incentive to play ladder. If we were going into this season, we're like, right, okay, what am I going to do to get my Orc score? What am I going to use to get my Eldar score? What am I going to use to get that'd be so much more exciting for someone in Legendary Division, for me, than what we currently have, which has zero excitement, because we already start in Legendary Division, so nothing to aim for. And other than the card back, which is like, it's something, but it's, I think it's a... Okay, so you ended up at around 15, and overall a pretty successful season. And again, you're not someone who grinds. Like, I know there's people in the top 10 who... Most people in the top 10 play a lot more than I'd say you and I, actually, when you look at their kind of like just how many wins they've got with Warlords and things like that. Like, you and I are nowhere near and we both have full-time jobs, and I've got family and all that sort of stuff. So
it's a little hard.
It's harder to kind of just go, I'm going to sit down and have an 8-hour session grinding ladder. It's like, yeah, good luck.
I mean, yeah, if you want to go War Master, you need to Warmaster. Still something we used to call number one, the War Master in HHL. So if you want to go for the War Master, let's call it like that, you're also going to have to grind a lot. It's not only having a good deck and being a good player is not going to help. You're going to have to grind, and you're going to have to grind a lot. Because there's gonna be a big struggle for the first spot, because you're gonna be like at each other's throats like the first 2 people or 3 people like the whole season. So and it is.
So I'll give you a little recap of my season, and then we'll dive into some card of the week stuff and what we kind of enjoyed using, and any kind of underrated cards that came out of our seasons as well. But yeah, I mean, it seems like an age ago now, but if you think back to the start of the January season, we had that whole drama around is the Neurothrope going to get this crazy buff, and we're going to have another Gazgul season, and then wisely, and again, well done Everguild on reversing that supercharged buff, and as a result, I think we've had the best season. I agree with you. I think the amount of variety I've seen, the stats sort of reflect that as well. We've had much closer win rates, much more participation of other war bosses, and that's been really cool. And so what I did is I started out the first couple of weeks in experimentation mode. I know now that I don't want to climb the ladder too quickly, because as we just said, you end up trapped because you then can't experiment, and it also gets a bit boring because if you lose, you like fall down. So I was like, do you know what? I don't care about my rank. I just want to play. So I was experimenting. I played a lot of different stuff. One of the decks that I really liked early on was Neurothrope. There was a couple of decks. There was one that Demos shared with me, and then there was a different one actually that Keep Catton shared with me, which I actually liked more. And that deck I was doing really well. I had a very good win rate with it, and it was a lot of fun. I was actually finding that I was enjoying it more than Swarm Lord. Just found it a little bit. The curve was a bit lower. It was just felt a bit more consistent. Probably not quite as high a power spike as Swarm Lord, but just like more consistent to play its play style, and I kind of enjoyed that deck. And funnily enough, I'm going to use that as a base for my Norm Emissary deck this season. But I obviously was testing lots of stuff. I did some masterclasses. I did some focus on content. Papa did a great masterclass with me on the Uriel deck. So anyone who's thinking of playing Uriel, I definitely advise going and watching that. And it was cool as well, because he said afterwards that we had such a bad session, as in we lost quite a lot of games. But I actually think it was better in a way, because it really forced us to like discuss why what was going on. And I think in a way you kind of learn more about the deck from that type of experience. So I did that, but then basically I noticed that Shrigma Mail was kind of racing away a little bit at the top of the ladder, and I was like, hey Shrigma, what are you playing this season? He's like, oh, I'm using Galen. I'm like, Galen? I'm thinking, well, Galen hasn't changed. Like none of the cards changed for Eldar in the last 2 seasons. I'm like, what are you doing? And so we were back and forth, and he showed me the deck, and basically he was running what was like, I would consider the standard tempo Galen, but he'd really focused on like consistency. And one of the things he did, for example, he had 2 Hemlocks in the 8-drop, which most people weren't doing. What I was seeing previous seasons is whether you should run one or none. Actually, we used to be the conversation, because obviously you got the Wailing Doom. And he ran 2, and what he'd basically done is he'd managed to build the deck in a way where the only RNG was the Eldritch Storm. And I was like, okay, cool. So and this was actually literally like the day after I'd done the masterclass on Uriel. And I thought, I'm going to kind of play Uriel now and start climbing. This was like, midpoint of the season. But then all this happened, and I was like, okay, I'm going to play some of Shrigma's deck, because I kind of like the Galen tempo, and okay, let's go. So I started playing that, and I started winning. And I just mean, like, I was definitely over 75%. It was sort of between that and 80%. And I was just like, this is great. Like, I was enjoying the matches, the style of play. It's always closer, even when you win, but I just enjoyed it. So basically, I ended up sort of like climbing. It's got into the top 50, got into the top 30. I just kept winning with it. And then before I knew it, I was sort of like, I think I was not far behind you in the top 10, and I'd pretty much at that point played. I think Neurothroat got me into like the top 50, and then I played Shrigma's deck, which got me into the top 10. And at that stage, there was kind of like Shrigma, there was Alski running Gruk, and there was Papa running Uriel, and those three were kind of like, they kept sort of leapfrogging each other for number one basically every single day. And then I just had the weirdest session one day. I think I messaged you and Papa about it, and there was some things going on in my purse. I realize now, like, there was some things going on outside of the game where let's just say my head might not have been in the best place to be sort of thinking analytically, and I just went on this horrendous losing streak, and I felt like a gambler. You know, like the gambler where you're like, dude, you're losing money, just quit now. Like, don't go double. And I was like, double or quits. And I just kept playing. I just kept losing. I think it's the worst losing streak I've had since I played the game. I can't remember, but I think I lost like something like 8 games in a row or something at one point.
Ooh.
Anyway, so I kind of slipped. Well, I say slipped. That's probably not a strong enough word. I kind of plunged out of the top 10, and I went down to like, I don't know. I actually think I might have even gone out of the top 50 at one point on this streak.
I remember, I was like, I even texted you, like, you stopped playing and deleted your account, or like...
I tell you, man, I was like, at the end of that session, I was like, I don't know what I said to you guys, didn't I? I said, I don't know what's happening, but I can't win a game with any deck. Because what happened was, and it's a horrible thing, and this is a good learning point. If you're losing, guys, take a break. What you don't want to do is what I did, which is go blame the deck and switch deck. Because what happens is you just switch deck, lose with that. So then you switch deck again and lose with that. And rather than actually what happens when you're on a win streak, which is you're actually getting deeper into the deck and understanding and building your intuition around the deck, you're actually taken away from that. You're doing the opposite. So you're just skimming the surface with all these decks. And then I had a horrible losing streak. So then I had a couple of days break, and then I came back and I was like, right, come on now. I know that this deck is good because it got me there, and I played a couple of days with Trigma's deck, and I did okay, and I got myself back in, and I think I got up to like rank 30-ish or something like that, and I was back on a positive win rate and I was doing well. And then I had a good catch up with Alski, and I think people probably know by now, but Alski is one of my best mates. I got him into the game. I gave him my Rockard deck, and he's just basically collected Orcs and played Gruk ever since. So Alski was like top of the ladder, basically. I'd say top 3 all season with it, and we had a good chat. And I don't really play Gruk because I'd had a break from Orcs. Like after the Gazgul season, I played Gazgul post-patch this season as part of my experimentation. I built an aggro Gazgul deck. This was after they nerfed him because I wanted to see if Gazgul was still good. And I played 12 games and I went 10-2 with a Gazgul aggro deck. So as far as I was concerned, Gazgul was still S tier. It just people had had enough of him and they weren't playing him. But trust me, Gazgul was still as good as anyone. And but other than that, I'd not played Orcs because I was like, I played Orcs last season. I played them the season before. I just want a break. But then, from chatting to Alski, I was like, you know what? Everyone's playing these beatdown decks, and I used to love Gruk, and I loved Gruk because there's so many different lines of play, and I think it's a really high skill ceiling, and we see that in the data, right? Like the Gruk, if you look at the Gruk win rate overall, and then you look at the Gruk win rate in top 50, in my opinion, and I don't want to go too much into the data because we're going to talk about this later, but in my opinion, Gruk won the top 50 because Gazgul had a couple of percent higher, but that includes the first 6 days where he was on the old Gazgul build because they didn't do the nerfs out until a week into the season. If you took that out, Gruk beat Gazgul this season. So if you want to know, actually, if you want to interpret that data, Gruk is the top rated warlord in the top 50 after the patch. That is, I'm 100% confident in that. So anyway, I switched to the deck, and I basically played Alski's deck. The only difference was he ran Pyrotechnics, which is actually something I'd advised him to do because he had Unbridled initially, and he swapped. I got him to put Pyrotechnics, and he said it worked well. He said in some games it was absolutely clutch, and other games it didn't do a lot. I actually dropped it, and I ran a second Gretchen mob because he was only running one Gretchen mob.
I'm also running one.
Yeah, and he's actually not a fan of it. He said he's even considering dropping it. I think it. I completely disagree with him. I think Gretchen Mob gives another synergy and another line of play in that deck. Not one you use every game, but another option. For example, Gretchen Mob Ada's Nails is absolutely fantastic. It gives you 12 health across 3 bodies that are Vanguard. And when you're forced to play the control approach, that is superb. That can really lock out a Uriel for two turns trying to clear that. So that's massive against aggro. So anyway, that aside, that's the only difference. I ran 2 Gretchen mobs. And basically I just played that deck for the last week. And I managed to climb, and then I got to the last day, and I messaged you, and you were like rank 10, and there was about 5 of us that were all pushing for that, and we were really close on points. I was like 13 or something at the point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, am I going to push for it? You know, I had a lot of stuff going on at home, and I was like, am I going to push for it? Am I going to push? I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the pressure off. I'm going to play. I'm going to play some games. If I'm winning, I'll keep going. If I lose, no big deal. Just stop. I don't, we lose 25. I'm not going to hit top 10. And I just won a game, and then I won another game, and I won another game. And basically, I finished the at the end of the season. It was 14 minutes to go, and I had 15 wins in a row. And I was like, I'm in 10, and Balduca was in 11. And I looked on the thing, and he was playing. And I was like, oh, shit. And he was 5 points behind me. So I'm like, if he wins this game, he's going to go 1 point above me. So I had this decision to make. Do I camp and put it on him? Like, if he loses, then I stay in the top 10 and I've done it. If he wins, though, he goes above me. Or with 6 minutes to go, do I play a game, risking the loss? But obviously, if I win, it doesn't matter really what Balduca does, because I'll maintain my top 10 spot. And I was like hovering over the thing nervously, and I went, do you know what? I'm going to play. I'd rather it be in my hands than in his hands. So I played, and then I drew into Uriel, and I was like, no! Like, looking at my stats, the Uriel aggro match was the hardest matchup for me. And I still managed something like a 49% win rate against Uriel, but you really have to know the matchup, and you have to get a bit lucky in your draw. And I was like, oh no, I've got Uriel, I've lost, I've done it, Anyway, I played the game and actually managed to win the game, and I was like, yes, get in. So I literally finished in 10th spot and got the silver thing and the 2 purity seals and blah, blah, blah. So that was the season, and then I was kind of looking forward to there being a balance patch being announced, and kind of just the season just ended. And then we ended in a new season. At least there's no patch shenanigans, and there's nothing gone wrong or broken, or no Tau cards that have been secretly revealed, or any of that stuff, that nonsense. But that was kind of like, my January season, to be honest.
Now that you mentioned the balance patch and things like that, there's like one thing that I think would be nice to discuss. The tradition that we have about the card of the week and the underrated card of the week, because I have a lot to say about that, actually.
Yeah, go for it. What is your card of the week?
I would like to first start from the underrated card of the week.
Okay,
This is a card that I don't have, actually, and I'm looking forward to getting it. The reason why I don't have it is because I still did not buy the deal. I think that I'll just wait and get those cards when they're in the shop, or I roll it from the pack, because I don't know, like I was kind of annoyed by the events that happened on that day, so I decided not to buy it. Even though that I was gonna buy it, I was kind of angry, so I chose not to. But that aside, it's the Neurotitan or Neurotyrant. The Neurotyrant, I think, is a very underrated card, because despite the fact that I know that there's people who bought this, and there were people playing the Terror of Undergast, they were not playing. I didn't see a lot of people playing the Neurotyrant. Maybe it's because not a lot of people have it right now. That could be one of the reasons, but I did not run into a single person playing it this season, which was very weird for me, because I think that out of the expansion, that is the best card, together with the Neuro. I saw a lot of people playing the Neuroloid, or whatever it's called. I saw quite a few Swarm Lords utilizing that, and there were some very interesting combos that they were doing with it. But overall, I was very surprised. Like, I was seeing like nobody's playing it, and I was like, what's going on. So either is that people don't have it yet, which might be the case, or it's that people just don't think they should get it. And in my opinion, that's a higher priority legendary than the Terror itself. So I would put, either way, I would put Neurotyrant as the underrated card of the week for sure, for me.
So you think it slots into like, I don't know, Swarmlord or...
Absolutely, I would put it in my Swarlord like 100%. Like I would ditch a Screamer Killer, for example, and put it there. Because like imagine like dropping that with... your defense card is absolutely nuts. Like, what if you're not playing against somebody who has hard removal, like for example Uriel can use the Inspired Retribution, but other than that, like how are they going to take it out? It's a flyer with obscene health, so it's very, very difficult. And if it does survive, then good luck, because it's going to get out of hand instantly. So it's an underrated card in my opinion for sure. As for the card of the week, this is a very, very difficult question for me, honestly, because there were a lot of cards that I would consider cards of the week. I'm done with cards of the week for Chaos because I think I explained, I think I had like it 2 weeks in a row, so 2 podcasts in a row, let's say like that. So actually, a lot of people might be surprised, but the card of the week for me, in this case, most certainly would be from the Orcs. And the card of the week that I think that some people might be underrating a little bit is the Iron Gob. None other than that. Now, let me tell you why the Iron Gob is so cool. And you might be now saying, but Ecclesiarch, you're not running that in your current Grok deck. That's right, I'm not. That's because I changed it a little bit because of the opponents that I was facing. I was facing very specific types of opponents, so I decided to ditch it. But that card is an free win condition against the Tyranids. An extra one, because if you're playing against the Swarmlord or you're playing against another Orc, let's say you want to play as Grok and you're facing a lot of Gaskulls, right? The guy who has 5 more HP than you. You put on the Iron Gob and there's no more Bloodthirst coming. That means the double attacks against you are halted, and on top of that, anything that attacks you on that turn gets to get stuck for the next turn. So it's a very big deal. It's a very big deal because
I agree.
It can actually buy you so much time. And I have to make an honorary mention as well, which is like honorable mention, which is the Acid Rain for as an offense card against the Tyranids. I unlocked it, and BJ, I know you also unlocked it. And that is the way you stop the Gene Stealer. Because
Tyranids, you just beat Tyranids.
Like for example, if you're playing as, let's say, Uriel, you definitely want to have the Acid Rain, because if somebody drops a Gene Stealer, your Storm Raven now clears it. Whereas until now it did not clear it. And Gene Stealers are a problem, because the other day I lost against the guy because he played the Gene Stealer, then he played another one into invisibility, then another one into invisibility, then Bloodthirsted and just took me out. So like if I had the Acid Rain there, I would be able to stop it. So there you go.
No, I think that's a really good shout. And I've just unlocked Acid Rain yesterday. It's like an offense card that actually makes sense, right? Like it actually helps you beat Tyranids, whereas like the Orc ones just seem to help the Orcs. This don't make any sense.
Like, why would you do the night attack against the Orcs? Like,
maybe they've got the squig thing. That's like the only one I can think of. It's like, no, totally. Man, I am. I love your Iron Gob one, by the way. I think that's so true, and I can tell you now, like that card won me. It was a big part of me winning so many games with Gruk. Like, do not skimp. If you play I've done a Gruk control. I've done the deck guide recently. If you want to see that's on my videos, but do not skimp on the double Iron Blood. Iron Gobs. It's so good. In fact, it's so good. It's making me wonder whether concussive as an ability is a little bit underrated right now, because I'm like, well, what if we're saying it's really good on that? What other cards have concussive? And I'm actually making me think. I wonder if I wouldn't mind testing that a little bit more. The thing is with Orcs, there's so many goddamn good cards that you can put anything together at this point, and I'm pretty sure you get a positive win rate. But
the funny part is the Iron Gob. If memory serves me right. It used to be on you attacking as well in the beta or whatever, and you could put it on as an Orc and attack somebody, and they would also be stunned. So it was also very annoying because you could now also use it as an offense card and not only a defense card. So I think
Mm,
that's when they decided that, maybe that's that's a little bit too much, right?
yeah, it's very powerful. Stun in general is very powerful at the minute. Um, my do I want to start with my card of the week or my underrated card? I'll start with my card of the week. It's a tough one because I kind of got three cards in mind. Two of them from the Orcs, which are from my group deck, and they're two of the flankers. So I want to kind of think my overall card of the week is probably the Veteran Stormboy. I think that people got quite excited when the Squig Buggy got the buff, and everyone sort of forgot about the Stormboy, and they started running that in the 6-drops and saying how broken it is and that. But both me and Alski dropped. And Alski came second on ladder, and somewhat controversially, I kind of think he won ladder this season. Because the reason I say I'm being a bit provocative, I know, but the reason I say that is that the guy who won ladder, Barker, I think he's Barker, he ran Gazgul all season, and how much MMR did he get from playing Gazgul, basically the old broken Gazgul, in the first week of the season? So what I'd be really interested, the way I kind of perceive it in a way, is if you look at this season post-patch, which even by EG's own patch notes, they said that they do intend for them to come out at the start of the season. I would say Alski won the season post-patch. Like, if you took away the or balanced the win rate that he would have got free, I think Alski would have won. But anyway, that aside, Alski and I ran the exact same deck by one card. He came second, I came 10th, and we both agreed that we both agreed the Squig Buggy wasn't right in this deck. And the Veteran Stormboy is just so good. It always feels so good. It feels good to just play as a proactive player, right? Like, it's like a flyer with 6 foot. It's like, good luck taking it out. If you draw it off of Grook, it's got strength 7. If it's next to Makari, it's strength 8. It can take out enemy flyers amazingly well. Like, one of my favorite things is like taking out like what's the Eldar one that takes out the flyer?
Crimson Hunter.
It has 0 melee attack. And just bringing on your guy and trading with that just feels so good. Obviously, it works the other way as well. Like, if he gets to hit you, he feels good for him. But the Doom Scythe is the same. The Marine one's is a bit more balanced, so that's not quite as good. But the Vet Stormboy just feels so good. And one of the things that Alski really got me thinking more focused on is the turn 7 combo when you Green Horde on turn 7. Because you Green Horde on turn 7, that means you can play the Veteran Stormboy now, and all of the Stormboys, which obviously essentially get like the knob buff at that point because they get flank. That combo was it's a very good. And there were some games where I'd be sitting there going, I can Green Horde now on turn 5, and going, actually, I'm not. It's a waste. I don't need to. I'm going to wait, and then I'd do it on turn 7. So I think Vet Stormboy is very good. The kind of honorary mentions go to the Boondacker Snazwagon, which you might think kind of like slightly similar, but the big thing there was, again, another thing that I kind of learned from Alski, really, which is that if you're going second, you always, in your mulligan, keep one of those, because obviously that means with stratagem, you can basically play on turn 3. And I honestly don't think I lost a game where I was going second and I had the Snazwagon. That combo is unbelievable. Taking out Sternguard Sergeant, for example, on turn 3 and saying, okay, now you deal with this. And you're either taking quite a lot of damage to face, or we're disrupting your play, because instead of you playing on curve and playing a powerful unit, you now have to play a point blank, or you have to play something to remove it, and it just switches the tempo completely. It's fantastic. The only other honorary mention is actually from the Eldar, and I want to say I think the Howling Banshee, when I was doing the Shrigma Mail deck and climbing, the Banshee just always feels good. Like, for 4 energy, it's such a good card. Like, it gives us the disruption, it gives us the flanking clear, and it gives us the stone. Like, it often survives a turn on the turn it comes on as well. I just think it's a super powerful, really a good example of a kind of strong card that's not broken, but it's really strong and it always feels good to play.
It's one of their best cards, 100%.
Totally, yeah. Rather than going with an underrated card, I'm gonna go with an overrated card this week. And my overrated card for the week is actually Rock Invasion. Like, I've had a few people saying to me about, I've got a few legendary cards and I want to do the deck. Shall I craft Rock Invasion before Orc Knob? I'm like, hell no. No. Get Makari, get Orc Knob, and like everything else is like a luxury. You honestly could run a Stomper in that Gruk deck if you wanted. Now, don't get me wrong, the Rock Invasion, when you play hundreds of games, and by the way, Arsky played something like 280 games this season and tracked it all. He had a 74% win rate over 280 games, which is really good to see. And the Rock Invasion will win you some games, right? Like I had a game the other day, I was losing the game, and I was like, I'm going to Rock Invasion here, and it's like a gamble. And I rolled the Rock Invasion, and I rolled 3 Ard Shells. And I'm like, and I won the game.
Yeah.
Now, and people are like, oh my God, you're lucky. Because I posted the picture of it on the Discord, and people are like, oh my God, that never happens to me. You're lucky. So I'm like, dude, Rock Invasion's lost me more games than it's won. Like, that's the only time in 3 seasons that's ever happened for me. Do you want to know how many times I've played it and got like shit and then lost the game? Like, so I just think people think Rock Invasion is such an easy card. It's like, oh, it's just like press win on turn 10. No, it's not. The reality is that on turn 10, it's almost like playing a unit like a Stomper that doesn't impact the game, because you have to plan for the very real possibility that you just get a load of infantry that doesn't have Vanguard, doesn't have flank. Well, you might as well play the Stomper then, because that's exactly the same. And so your opponent can basically get a free turn to hit you in face and win the game. So it's very risky card, and you have to time it very, very well. And yes, the only exception to that is, yes, there is the last-ditch gamble of there's nothing else I can do. I just have to roll it and hope I get some hard shells. Yes, fair enough. That is built into it. But the odds of that happening, it's not a very consistent strategy for winning. So my overrated card is Rock Invasion. It sat in my hand for many games and didn't get used. And I actually found a way to win with Proper Killing instead, which is a superb card.
Rock Invasion is a very interesting thing in general. I think the main thing about the Rock Invasion, it being overrated, I think it also, because I feel the same, like, I also felt like this was a very powerful card, but that was last season. And last season, I think it was a very overrated, overtuned card. I mean, you know why? Because when you were playing against the Gaskell, and you had like almost no chances of taking tempo from him, it felt very frustrating when you would actually somehow stop the Gaskell onslaught. You were on the verge of winning, and suddenly he pressed the button and wins. And for a lot of people, it was very, very frustrating, me included. Like, I remember I had a couple of games where I actually managed to stop his like grot spam and something, and suddenly he presses this and he wins. So in that case, it was very, very strong. Now, in the current meta, especially considering that there's a lot of aggro going on, like you got the Uriel, you got the Galen, you got the Abaddon mid-range, because I think most people learned that mid-range is the way to play Abaddon if you want to go higher. If you want to have some fun, obviously the late-game Abaddon is also a thing. I think you don't really get a lot of room for playing Rock Invasion. I think it's overrated. Overall, it's a bad design, even though like in lore wise and like in terms of flavor, it's exactly what expected to be, like rock from space drops like moon-sized rock and scaring orcs with it, right? Basically, it's that's, I believe, from that time when the orcs actually heard with their gravity technology, they heard the moon right above Terra and then this invasion commenced, and I believe like the whole almost whole Imperial Fist chapter was like annihilated in that invasion. So yeah, I can understand if that is where the inspiration comes from, like that is totally accurate. But once again, it's kind of a toxic design for the game, because nobody really likes the win or lose cards, because it's like, okay, I press it, if I get 2 or 3 art shells, I'm gonna win. but in most of the cases I'm not gonna get it and I'm gonna lose, right? Because in reality, when you play the Rock Invasion, there's only one card that you are hoping for, which is the Art Shell, because the orcs don't have any more Vanguard cards. No cards that actually instantly have Vanguard. There are cards that gain Vanguard, but not cards that instantly have it. So for the orc player, it's uncomfortable as well. Like, you're like, okay, like, what are the chances that I get it, right? Quite low, but sometimes I might get obscenely lucky. But of course, if in the board state where both boards are empty, sure, then it's game winning, obviously. But so
but you're lucky to get that kind of board state in turn 10 on turn 10. But yeah, you're right. If you get it, I mean, the other thing is, like, it'd be interesting to see how it evolves, right? Like, as we get more orc cards, do we get cards that benefit the Rock Invasion? The other thing is, it dilutes the pool of getting Hard Shell, right? So that becomes harder to get. But don't you just think that, I mean, people often compare it to Tomb World and Black Crusade. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think it's nowhere near in the same league as Tomb World. Like, Tomb World is not even, like, and I'm not even just talking about the fact that Tomb World is 2 points cheaper, which is insane given this conversation we're having. But Tomb World, it is built around, it's based on your deck. It's built around your deck. You're getting Lich Guards back. You're getting all the things, the flankers back.
You know what you're getting.
You know what you're getting. I would even argue, it's really making me wonder whether Black Crusade is better. I mean, Hard Shell is, if it wasn't for Hard Shell, Black Crusade would 100% be better. But at least even with Black Crusade, right, you can design a deck where you can have your Vanguards in that. You can design it in a way where you're pretty much guaranteed to get that. And now you get Venom Crawler and other good cards. But and either way, it's nowhere near. Don't you think it's nowhere near in Tomb Worlds?
It's not even near. Like, Tomb World is the best out of those cards. The win buttons, let's call them like that, because Tomb World guarantees you are gonna get whatever you're hoping to get, like, because you know what units have you played, and like, you're gonna be getting Lich Guard, Scorpack Destroyers, Plasmancers. You're always gonna be getting good cards out of that. And in some cases, it also drops, like, let's say a Scorpack and a Technomancer, which means if you have more than 8 energy, well, that's also a board clear, because Scorpack is gonna be attacking 2 or 3 times, which is absolutely nuts. Plus, don't forget, when Scorpacks get reanimated, you choose who they attack. They don't use the frenzy doesn't happen, right? Now, on top of that, there's also another thing there. It's that Tomb World, when you play it, you know that you're getting the front line, right? On top of that, you're also the Vanguard. I mean, on top of that, Tomb World can also be played early to play like 2 or 3. I've done many times, like, just play Tomb World to resurrect a single Lich Guard and a single Scorpack just for tempo, and it's still great. It's still gonna win you the game. While these other cards are not that reliable, because even with the Black Legion, like, you're not getting any Vanguards out of that. The only Vanguard is the Terminator, and once again, the Terminator is so subpar compared to the Venom Crawler now that the running Terminator is basically asking to lose, because compare it to the Venom Crawler. Like, you play the Black Crusade, by the time you play the Black Crusade, I've already won the game with Venom Crawler, right? So it's that's why I think, once again, I say this every single video, every single podcast, and I'm gonna keep saying it until it happens. Remove the armor, give it to the Terminator. Give us some diverse play. Don't give, maybe 2 armor might be crazy, but give it 1 armor, okay? Just remove this 1 armor from this and give it to that. I've heard a lot of people saying that it would be overpowered because it also has ranged attack, unlike some other things, but, like, what's the function of that Terminator in that case? You gotta give it something, because it's just a vanilla drop with Vanguard. It's okay, but it's so overshadowed by the Venom Crawler that playing the Black Crusade build doesn't make sense anymore. We don't have any ramping abilities either, and there you go. I think, like, we used to have a card. There were, I believe, 2 cards like that in Horus Heresy Legions. Like, there was one card called the Emperor's Wrath, and there was the second one called Desperate Defense, and both of them were a little more interesting than the ones we got here. Let me tell you in what sense. Desperate Defense was a 10 energy card, which would pull 2 cards from your deck, only 2 random, but it would give them Vanguard when they deployed it. So you knew that when you would get to 10 energy, you were not filling your board, but whatever you were playing, it was gonna get Vanguard. And in a lot of cases, it was very scary, because you would be, the decks that they would build around that usually had like gigantic strong units. The Emperor's Wrath on the other case, on the other hand, was less played, but it was also a fun card. It was a 9 energy card, and it would drop 4 3 or lower cost units from your deck, I believe, or 4 or lower cost units. And it would also give them this thing called Drop Pod, which meant that they had 2 extra HP like before your turn. They would be in a drop pod which had 2 HP, and when your turn started, the drop pod would open and the units would exit. And it was also pretty fun because it was a nice finisher for aggro decks, like swarming decks. Like, it was not considered to be a very good card, but it was fun. Like when you would play Salamanders, for example, who had a lot of smaller units, but they had like Survivor, they were hard to kill. When you would press this, it would be pretty nasty. So they were a little more interesting because there were also ramping abilities there. The Asteroid Belt, 3 energy, gain 1 energy permanently, and stuff like that. So I think one of the things to make these cards more interesting, like Black Crusade, is certainly the ramping mechanic. That could be something to be fun. But in general, I overall prefer to know that there is some sort of consistency available. Like, for example, it may be just me, but I would much prefer if Rock Invasion was put down 1 Archil Gurk and, let's say, and Orc Boys, fill your board with Orc Boys, for example. That for me would be a better card, because I would know that for sure I'm getting 1 front line and rest of the units are lower cost. So that means that the opponent still has a chance to clear the board, but at the same time it saves me, right? So it could be a better, or for example, you could say like there was also a suggestion, I think, from Orthonal, I believe. He said that like, why not make it put 1 8 cost unit, 1 7, 1 6, 1 5, 1 4, 1 3 or something, you know? Like it that could also be a thing. You know, what I mean is like some sort of consistency would be nice, because the fact that Tomb World, you can set up the Tomb World, it makes for a very good thing. Or let me give you another one. Perhaps Rock Invasion could be something like this. Put in play a number of X something, some unit, for each, let's say, unit with Tide that you played this game, for example. Like, that would also be a very interesting thing. Like, basically what I'm saying is, make it in a way that it's under your control. Like,
or how many times you triggered mob.
Yeah, super. Like, make it into something that rewards you for using a certain mechanic. That would mean that, like, you would have some more interesting builds, and maybe perhaps, like, the opponent would have to set it up. It would no longer be a win or lose button, right? Things like that, for me, are much more interesting. That's the reason why instantly when I started gathering Necrons, because when I saw the Tomb World, I was like, okay, this is very good. This is like super. And don't forget, unlike every other Black Crusade type of card, Tomb World means that when you do the AoE, you're also going to have remnants available. So you can resurrect them afterwards. So it's very hard to take care of, because that was the meme that was circulating on the WARPFORGE community like a long time ago. Like, the Orc uses the Will of Gork, and then suddenly the Necron is like Resurrection Orb. So it's a pretty funny thing. It could be, and then the Orc uses another one, obviously. But if you remember, the Resurrection Orb used to be an epic, so you used to have two in your deck.
Oh god, I wasn't playing at that point.
Yeah.
Still need to test that card, actually. Maybe
I just got it, so I'm actually excited to try it.
Yeah, might go back to the Ghost Ship build and test it.
Yeah, you know, Zandrek really needs something. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say, actually, we are going to kind of just go on to sort of a little bit of chat around what you're planning on kind of starting this season with, and me too. And then we're going to really delve into this meta report, which just got released by Everguild literally last night. So that'll be really cool. We'll dive into that. So yeah, let's hop on over. If you want to hear about that, hop on over. We're going to hop on over to my channel now for part 2. So please stick with us, and Ecclesiarch will pop the link obviously below, so you'll be able to easily come across. And we'll see you on the other side, guys.
See you in a minute.